Well, it is time on the dot right now. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to welcome everybody to our webinar on balancing a job as a young adult. I know many of you may have a job already, or you might be considering getting a job. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about how you can kind of, balance things. You want to be able to still live a, stress-free of a life as possible while having your little, job. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Miss Vogler, and I'm one of the high school counselors for students whose last names begin with A and L through M. And then Miss Wilson will be presenting a little bit later, and she is one of the high school counselors, and her students are have the last names of H through K. So both of us will be presenting a little bit today. All right, so you got a job, now what? It's like there are different things to really think about. So first of all, make sure that you always check your state laws surrounding employment as a young adult. Since we are an online school, obviously we have students from all over the world, and every state, country, everything, may be a little bit different. So always check that first. One thing you may need to do in your state is obtain a work permit. And so you can find out more of that, I would just say Google that in your state and see specifically what you would need. Some states, require the work permit. There's some states that will just have a form and say, send this on to your counselor, and then we can sign it. The other thing that most of my students have done is request a VOE. That's called a verification of enrollment. So you can feel free to shoot an email to your counselor. I believe it's the admissions office that does it. But we always usually forward it on for you, and then they have a form that shows that you are enrolled in Enlightium Academy, kind of verifies your age, things like that. So that may be really the main thing that you're going to be needing from us. Okay, there are always some common pitfalls whenever we try to have a job and juggle things around. So let's talk a little bit about those. Okay, so the first thing is lack of balance. You really need to think about, how many hours can you realistically work and balance everything that you have? You don't want to be neglecting your sleep or your exercise routine. You definitely don't want to fall behind in school. Unfortunately, throughout the years, I have worked with students who have spent most of their time focusing on work, and then at the end of the semester, the end of the year comes around, and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this. And then they're super, super stressed. So you want to make sure that you really kind of have a good plan. Stress and burnout, that's another big one. When we get stressed and burnt out, we aren't motivated anymore. We start to struggle in school. And then emotionally, we just feel drained. And everything just feels like it keeps snowballing on top of us. And then another one is poor communication. If you find that you are working and you're starting to feel a little bit of stress, we all kind of know what that feeling is like. Um, you have to be able to go ahead and ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. You can always talk to your managers and say, hey, I've got a lot of projects coming up. Can I maybe cut my hours back for the next couple of weeks, and then maybe pick some more up over the breaks? Your teachers, of course, I mean, they will always work with you. Your counselors, your parents, you have a lot of people in your corner. And so communication is super, super important. Okay, and then one way to solve some of the pitfalls is to be thinking about time management. We all have, I know, whenever you're doing online school, you kind of seem like you morph into your own management, way, your own way to go ahead and make sure you're staying on track and all that. Whenever you have a job, that's just adding in another piece. So you want to make sure that you set your priorities, your faith, your school, your relationships, and your work. So those are some big things to juggle, especially as a young adult. Use a planner or a calendar. There's nothing wrong with writing it down or putting it in your digital calendar or whatever, so that you can see, okay, today I'm working so many hours, and then I have this test coming up, and just kind of, the pre-planning is really the key to being successful. Set very realistic expectations for yourself. Don't say, I'm going to work 80 hours a week and I'm going to work 30 hours in school. It's like, you will be super super stressed, like really really fast. And then again, communicate with your employer. So make sure you are, on the same page. And if they are demanding that you work certain hours and not working with you, you may want to think about, do I need to maybe look for another place to work, possibly that will work with me as a student? Okay. Is this I can't remember, is this mine or yours?
I will take over now.
Okay. Thank
Of
you, Miss Wilson.
course. Yes, so another common pitfall is when students don't ask for help. So Mrs. Vogler did already touch on this and the importance of asking for help. It's really normal. We all have times where we start to feel overwhelmed and we might need to ask for help from different people in our lives. So as a student at Enlightium, we want you to know that you can reach out whenever you need help, especially when it's from a counselor. If you find yourself falling behind in your classes, please reach out to us. We can discuss with you getting caught up or even adjusting your course load to help things feel more manageable. So, a counselor is somebody who's always in your corner. We always want to see you succeed, and there's never any shame in reaching out and asking for help. We would also ask that if you're going to miss 3 or more days of school to complete an absence form. That goes to our progress team and it just notifies them that you have a planned absence and they're not going to become concerned when they see that you haven't logged in for a few days. So that's one way. It's not necessarily asking for help, but it's just another way of being in good communication with the people at Enlightium. We also ask that school would remain a priority in your life, and I'm sure your parents would ask the same. So, if you find that your work is interfering with your ability to be a good student, we would ask that you consider reducing your work hours. There are a lot of companies who do hire high school students who are understanding that school is going to be a priority in their life. And if you find that your workplace is not one of those places that's understanding of your schedule as a student, you may want to find a place that allows for some more flexibility with school. This is something that you can ask about when you're interviewing for jobs as well. So if you're considering working somewhere and you want to know if they're going to work with you as a student, that's a great thing to bring up in your interview, just so you're being a proactive communicator. When you are feeling overwhelmed, whether it's at work or at school, we highly recommend reaching out to your support system. Maybe that includes your counselor at Enlightium, maybe it includes your parents, your friends, your teachers, or your managers or coworkers. So it really just depends on which area you're struggling in, who you would ask for support from. But it's really important to remember that there are people who care about you so that you can reach out when the going gets tough, because that happens for everybody. Okay, another common pitfall would be not staying organized. So, when you're balancing a job as a young adult, that's going to be really important because you have a lot going on. You have school, you have your job. So, one way that you can avoid this pitfall would be to keep track of your due dates. Ignitia, which is the platform that you all should be very familiar with at this point, makes it easy to see which assignments are due when. So, let's say that you know you have a couple of work shifts coming up that are going to take a lot of your time in the evenings. And you also have a lot of assignments coming up that are due this week. You can take the time when you're not working to work ahead, and just being aware of those due dates and when you have things assigned to get done is going to help you stay organized and help you not to fall behind. If you do find that you've fallen behind, you can always use breaks or weekends or days when there's not school to get caught up. As long as Ignitia is open and available, you can work in it. No new coursework is assigned on Fridays, so those are a really good day to get caught up on coursework that has become overdue. So that's something that I always recommend to students who have fallen behind. It's a really good first step to take in staying organized and on top of your work. So it's not all pitfalls. There are also some really great benefits when it comes to having a job as a young adult. So we're going to talk about a few of those as well. So, the first benefit of having a job as a young adult is money management. When you work, you start to understand the value of money in a way that you really can't unless you're working. So, you can see how much work it takes to earn the things that you want to have, or how much gas money really costs, right? When you're working, it just gives you a more tangible idea of expenses and understanding money's value. Working as a high school student, as a young adult, can also help you when it comes to budgeting skills. When you're receiving a regular paycheck, you can work with your parents and determine how much you want to save, how much you want to spend, as well as what you might need to put towards expenses like car insurance or gas money if that applies to you. A lot of high school students are also starting to think about what comes next after high school. So, having a job and earning a regular income can help you save for some of those future goals. So, maybe you know that it's really important for you that you're going to be able to buy a car one day, or that you're going to be putting money towards your own college tuition. So, if those are goals that you have, having a job can help you achieve those. And having a job in high school is a really great time to start because you're not paying rent and you're still being cared for in a lot of ways by your parent or guardian. So we would say that's a big benefit of having a job as a young adult. Having a job in high school can also increase your capacity for responsibility, right? When people at work are expecting things of you, you are stretching that muscle of being reliable, of showing up, of doing what you need to do, even on days when you might not really feel like it. And because you're proving yourself to be reliable, you're going to build trust with the people in your life. You're going to show your manager, your coworkers, maybe even your parents that you're somebody who is reliable and who is trustworthy. And that's a skill that you can carry into the rest of your life, into your relationships, into school, into future jobs. Even as a college student, this is going to be a really big piece for you. Having a job can also help you have increased accountability in your life. This really goes along with the first 2 points that I just made. But when you have people who are relying on you and who are expecting you to show up and to do the things that you say, that's going to increase accountability. So, having a job can actually provide a really nice structure, especially if you're a student who struggles to sit down and get your coursework done. If you have limited time to get your coursework done, sometimes that motivates students to actually sit down and do what they need to do when they get home from work. And finally, having a job can help to increase your levels of independence. Working can increase your self confidence because it proves to yourself that you can do the hard things, that you can show up. It increases personal initiative, and that really just means the ability to act independently and proactively to get things done, even without being prompted. So, there are going to be times at work when you see that there's a need, and you're the one who's going to be filling that need. So that's going to increase that idea of personal initiative that you can show up and take charge. And when you are showing up and working hard and taking initiative, that's naturally going to increase your maturity. When you're taking on those increased responsibilities, when you're managing your money, you're going to see yourself grow as an individual, and that's going to be evident to the people in your life. So, we want you to be wary that taking a job is a big deal, but it also comes with a lot of benefits if that's the right thing for you during this time of your life. So, having a job can also help you start to think about your future goals, and it can contribute to your planning for the future. So, for example, let's say you're a student who's really interested in working with kids. You could look into taking a part time job as a tutor. Or maybe you're a student who is interested in working with animals in the future. You could see if the local animal shelter has any positions for you. And these are really good ways to get your feet wet while you're still in high school. You still have that safety net of living at home and seeing if it's even an interest that you want. Maybe you start working with kids and you're like, you know what? I think I'd prefer to work with animals. That's okay. And this is a great time in your life to be able to test things out and get a feel for what your strengths are and your interests are. If you're not ready to commit to a job, volunteer opportunities could be a good option for you. Lots of local places, maybe it is an animal shelter, maybe it's your church, maybe it's a nonprofit in your area. They would be happy to have you. And that's a bonus because Enlightium does require you to complete community service hours before you graduate. So it's kind of a kill two birds with one stone situation. When you volunteer, you can contribute those hours towards your graduation requirements, and you can also gain good experience. So maybe you don't have the capacity to take on a 15 to 20 hour a week part time job. That's okay. Try volunteering for a weekend out of each month and see how that feels. Likewise, internships are kind of similar to jobs, but they're temporary and they're often in place for people who have very little experience. So, if you're interested in a particular career, maybe you're interested in working at a law office. We just had an attorney come speak for us last week, which was amazing. And she recommended that reach out to local law offices if that's something that you're interested in pursuing in the future and seeing if they have an internship available for you. It doesn't mean you're going to be sitting down and practicing law or anything like that. Maybe it's just answering the phone or taking care of administrative needs around the office. So, internships are a great option for you as well. And I also really encourage you all to use Zello. Zillow is an awesome resource. You should all have access to your Zillow account by now. If you don't, reach out to your counselor and we can help you out. But it's really cool because you can search for pretty much any job that's out there and click on that job and then scroll down. And underneath each job, there's something called an education and training center or section on each job. And that shows you the type of education and training that you'll need. So it might tell you what types of courses to be taking during high school if you're interested in that position. And it might even tell you what types of volunteer or internship opportunities would be good to take on as a high school student. So those are all just pieces to consider because we don't want your job to be happening in a vacuum. We want it to help you start thinking about what you might like to do in the future and what areas you are particularly strong in. And finally, I'm going to just help you think through, are you ready for a job? Jobs can have great benefits for a lot of students, but it's not for everybody. And I just want you to know if it's not for you, that's okay. So first and foremost, I would recommend you talk with the parent or adult in your life about whether or not a job is something that is wise to take on during this time of your life. Maybe you're a student athlete, maybe you have a really heavy course load and a job just doesn't make sense right now, but maybe it would make sense later on. So, first, talk with the people in your life, and then ask yourself some questions. Do you have enough time for a job right now? Are you already stretched pretty thin? Maybe a job isn't quite right. Can I continue to prioritize school with having a job? Maybe you're the opposite of stretched thin, and you actually have a lot of hours in the afternoon to do things that you enjoy. So maybe a job actually would be a really good fit for those extra free time hours that you find yourself having. You also want to make sure you understand the expectations of a job. So, when you're searching for jobs online, a lot of times they will list out the expectations in terms of time, responsibilities. So, be reflective and ask yourself if that's something that you can handle during this time of your life. Also, consider what your motivation is for wanting to work. If your motivation is solely to make money and not to, better yourself, I would say pause and consider, are there other ways that I could be considering when it comes to whether I should be pursuing a job right now? Maybe a seasonal job or a summer job would be a better fit than a year-round job. During high school, I didn't work a lot during the week, but I was a referee for soccer games on the weekend. And then during the summer, I was always a camp counselor. So maybe it's good when you don't have coursework to complete to take a job on during those times. And then finally, like I was talking about before, a job can support your future goals. So consider, how could this job support my future goals? And it doesn't always have to go hand in hand with your future career, but it is something that might be helpful to consider. So, those are some questions to ask yourself when you're considering whether a job is right for you during this time of life. And those are the questions that we're going to leave you with. However, we want to invite you, if you have questions for us, we do have a few minutes to answer those. So feel free to raise your hand. There should be a little reaction button on Zoom, and we'll call on you to unmute. You're also welcome to chat me or Mrs. Vogler with questions, and we can answer them here. So I'll just give you a moment to send in any questions that you have or raise your hand. And if there's no questions, that's okay. Or if you prefer to ask your question to a counselor individually, you should know how to reach us. You can email us or chat us in Ignitia, and we can connect with you that way. I just got one.
Oh, good.
What kind of jobs would you recommend for a person who would like to be an entrepreneur? Hmm,
Ooh.
that's a
You
good
know, I would think in really for being an entrepreneur, any type of job that deals with business, um, and just and finding some or a job that you're just interested in. Like if you already kind of have an idea of what are some things you would like to maybe develop down the road, or what type of entrepreneur would you like to be, find something in that category because that will always give you some good background.
Yeah, that's great. Entrepreneur is such a broad term, so
Mhm.
I totally agree. Something in the business realm would likely be helpful for you and get you in communication with people in that field. So maybe even ask around people you know own businesses. Maybe there's folks in your church or in your community if they have any jobs available. That could be a good option as well. Any other questions? That's the only one that I saw via chat. So I'll give y'all one more moment to raise your hands, get any last questions in. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything, and I won't keep you guys here longer than we need to be. But again, please reach out to your counselor if you have any questions, if you're considering getting a job but aren't sure about next steps. If you need a work permit, anything like that, reach out and we can talk with you about that. But thank you all for attending. We hope you have a
Yes,
great
thank you.